There's a quiet kind of fear that doesn't scream. It waits. It watches every pause in a conversation, every unread message, every silence that lasts a little too long. It lives in the space between connection and loss, whispering, "They're going to leave." The fear of emotional abandonment doesn't need someone to walk away physically. Sometimes it's enough for someone to drift emotionally, a change in tone, a colder glance, forgotten detail, and suddenly the mind fills the silence with stories of rejection. This fear shapes how we love, how we cling, and how we build walls before anyone else can. It's a survival instinct born from a time when love felt uncertain. There are wounds that leave no visible scars, only an ache that appears in the quiet moments. Between connection and solitude, the fear of emotional abandonment is one of them. It does not shout, nor does it rage. It lingers softly, disguised as sensitivity, as attentiveness, as care that feels just a little too anxious. It begins with something small, a delayed reply, a shorter tone, a shift in someone's warmth. To most, it's harmless, but to the one who carries the fear, it feels like the ground tilting beneath their feet. Every change in rhythm becomes a warning, every silence a prophecy. They start to replay moments in their mind, scanning for signs of rejection that aren't really there. Did I say something wrong? Did they lose interest? Are they pulling away? This is how abandonment anxiety speaks, not in words, but in the restless hum of hyper-awareness. The mind becomes a radar tuned to the smallest fluctuations in affection. It is exhausting to constantly measure warmth, to decode tone, to interpret pauses as danger. And yet beneath all this vigilance lies something tender, the wish to feel safe in love, the wish to believe that someone will stay, not because you've earned it, not because you've been perfect, but simply because you are worth staying for. But that belief rarely feels natural to those who live with this fear. They are used to conditional warmth, affection that disappears when they speak too much, feel too deeply, or night too often, so they learn to perform stability, to smile when they want to cry, to say it's fine when it is, to love carefully as if every misstep could end everything. This kind of love is not peaceful, it's survival in disguise. It's staying alert so as not to be left again. It's trying to be lovable enough to be kept. Many people who carry this fear appear composed from the outside, kind, understanding, emotionally intelligent, but beneath that grace is a child who still believes that love can vanish overnight, a child who once reached out and found nothing there. The fear of emotional abandonment does not only hurt relationships, it shapes identity. It teaches someone to be overly self-aware, to anticipate others' needs before their own, to mold themselves into whatever shape will be accepted. They might confuse peace with people, pleasing and affection with approval. And so even in moments of real love, their body does not fully relax, because safety to them feels unfamiliar. This fear doesn't require betrayal or loss to awaken, it only needs uncertainty, the absence of reassurance, the moment someone turns away mid-sentence or fails to notice a subtle change in tone. These micro moments of disconnection, the small emotional absences, carry the same emotional weight as being left behind. It's not just about who left, it's about what they're leaving taught the mind to expect forever. Abandonment fear is not simply the pain of being alone, it's the anticipation of aloneness. It's the mind bracing for impact even when no danger is present. It's emotional déjà vu, an old ache disguised as a current fear. When people who live with this fear love, they love deeply, almost painfully so. They notice every nuance, every change in temperature between souls. They are the ones who feel when someone's eyes stop shining the same way, even before words confirm it. They are the empaths, the intuitives, the ones who sense what's unspoken. And yet this sensitivity, this ache for stability, is not a flaw. It is proof of how much the heart still longs for connection, proof that even after years of silence and distance, the human soul still hopes. The echo of absence is powerful, but it also reveals something profound. We fear abandonment because, somewhere deep within, we still believe in belonging. That belief, fragile, trembling, and beautiful, is where the healing begins. Before the fear of abandonment becomes a pattern, it begins as an experience, one that's often too early, too confusing, and too silent to remember clearly. It begins in childhood, long before words can explain the ache. A baby learns what love means not through language, but through rhythm, the rhythm of presence and absence, of warmth and withdrawal. When a caregiver smiles, the body learns safety. When they turn away too long, the body learns uncertainty. It is in these small gaps, the moments between reaching out and being met, that the blueprint of attachment is drawn. For some children, those gaps are rare. A cry is answered, a fear is soothed, and the nervous system learns to rest. But for others, the world becomes unpredictable. A parent is sometimes loving, sometimes distant. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they're lost in their own pain. Child begins to wonder, what did I do wrong this time? This question becomes the seed of a lifelong pattern. Inconsistent love teaches the child that connection must be earned. That being lovable requires performance, quietness, helpfulness, perfection, compliance. And when the parent finally turns back, offering a smile or touch, it doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like relief, a temporary proof that love still exists. But this relief never lasts long, and so, even in adulthood, love remains tied to anxiety, a cycle of craving closeness, then bracing for its loss. It's not that the parent was cruel. Often they were simply overwhelmed, dealing with their own wounds, their own history of absence. Emotional abandonment rarely happens out of malice, it happens through repetition, the same unspoken disconnection passed down through generation. Imagine a child running toward their mother with excitement, only to see her eyes distant, lost in thought. The child doesn't understand stress or depression. They only know that something sacred, attention, has vanished. So they pull on her sleeve, they speak louder, they laugh harder, trying to pull her gaze back. When that gaze doesn't return, the child learns a quieter lesson. If I can't make them stay, I'll stop needing so much. That is the first separation, not between two people, but between the child and their own need for connection. In psychology, this moment is described through attachment theory. A securely attached child learns that love endures through absence, that even when someone steps away, they will come back. But an anxiously attached child never gets that consistency. Their body remains on alert, waiting for the next sign of distance. This state becomes the nervous system's baseline, a constant, invisible readiness for rejection. It explains why decades later, a partner's silence can feel catastrophic, or why a small argument can feel like the end. The body is not reacting to the present moment, it's remembering the first separation. When children grow up in unpredictable emotional climates, they learn two survival strategies: control and compliance. Control to prevent love from disappearing. Compliance to remain worthy of it. Both are rooted in the same wound, the terror of being unseen. The adult who carries this wound often doesn't remember the details, only the sensation. Hollow in the chest when someone walks away, the way their body stiffens at goodbyes, the way their mind creates stories to fill silence, always leaning toward loss. It's tragic in its simplicity. They fear what once saved them. Emotional vigilance was once protection, now it's imprisonment. But even this pain reveals something deeply human. It shows that connection was once sacred. Enough to lose, that love mattered enough to shape the architecture of the mind. The first separation is where the story begins, but it is not where it must end. Because to trace this fear back to its origin is not to relive it, but to finally understand it. An understanding, gentle as it may seem, is the first act of healing. Fear is the body's oldest language. Long before we could form words, it spoke for us through the tightening of muscles, the quickening of breath, the instinct to reach or retreat, the fear of. Emotional abandonment is not just a story the mind tells. It is a physiological memory written into the body's most ancient systems. When someone fears being left, their nervous system reacts as if survival itself is at stake, and in a sense it is, because to the human brain, isolation once meant danger. Our earliest ancestors Survived by belonging. To be excluded from the tribe was to face the elements alone, this primal. Memory lives on in the modern nervous system, where emotional rejection can feel as threatening as physical harm. Neuroscientists have found that the brain processes social pain, rejection, neglect, abandonment in the same regions that process physical pain. The ache of being ignored, the sting of being forgotten, they are not metaphors, they are neural events firing real signals of danger. When someone carries the fear of abandonment, their amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm, becomes hypervigilant. It scans for any sign of disconnection, often misinterpreting neutral signals as rejection. A friend's distraction becomes disinterest. A lover's quietness becomes withdrawal. The mind races to fill in the blanks, not because it wants to, but because it must. Brain's goal is always safety, even when its methods create more pain. Over time, this fear becomes self-reinforcing. The moment the mind suspects loss, the body reacts. A rush of cortisol, a tightening in the chest, a flood of anxious thoughts. That tension then confirms the fear. Something must be wrong. Why else would I feel this way? The body becomes both the messenger and the proof of the danger it fears. Psychologists often describe this pattern through the lens of attachment systems. When a child grows up in inconsistent emotional environments, their attachment system learns to overactivate, to chase closeness, to monitor affection, to never truly relax. It's not a flaw, it's adaptation. Brilliant survival mechanism built from uncertainty. Yet in adulthood, this same mechanism becomes painful. It pulls the person into cycles of reassurance seeking, needing constant confirmation of love, even when it's already there. It fuels overthinking. If I can understand every detail, maybe I can prevent them from leaving. But love is not a problem to solve, and yet, for someone with abandonment anxiety, love feels safest when it's predictable, controllable, guaranteed. The paradox is cruel. The very effort to prevent loss often creates distance. Partners feel smothered, friends feel overwhelmed, and the feared outcome, disconnection, repeats again. The mind confirms what it always believed: they always leave. In therapy, this cycle is sometimes called emotional conditioning. The brain links affection with anxiety, so even in safe relationships, calmness feels suspicious. Peace feels like the calm before a storm. Love without tension feels unreal. And so the person unconsciously recreates what is familiar, the roller coaster of connection and withdrawal, because familiarity, even when painful, feels safer than the unknown. But beneath the psychology, beneath the theories and data, there's a more human truth. This fear exists because love mattered, because connection was once fragile enough to break, and the memory of that break never truly left. Every panic before silence, every ache after a goodbye, every racing thought that whispers they're slipping away. These are not overreactions. They are memories the body still holds. The brain is simply trying to finish a story it never got to complete, the one where someone leaves and no one comes back. The psychology of fear is complex, but its essence is simple. The body remembers what safety felt like and what it lost. And until that memory is rewritten, every silence feels like danger. But understanding this, truly seeing that fear as protection, not weakness, is where compassion begins. And compassion, unlike control, begins to soothe the system from within. Inside every person who fears abandonment lives a quiet contradiction. A part that longs for closeness, to be held, understood, seen without condition. And another part that braces for the loss that closeness might bring. This is the inner war. It is not loud, it doesn't always show on the surface. It unfolds in small, invisible ways, in hesitation before sending a message, in rereading a response, in pretending not to care when something matters deeply. It's a constant negotiation between wanting to be known and fearing that being known will lead to rejection. This war began as protection. When love once felt unpredictable, the mind split itself into two strategies: reach and retreat. One side reaching for connection, desperate not to be left; the other pulling away first to avoid the pain of being left behind. Both sides mean well, both are terrified, but together they create chaos. Imagine standing at the edge of a shore watching a wave come toward you. One part of you wants to dive in to trust the water. Another part screams to run. You end up frozen in. Between, half submerged, half withdrawn. That's what relationships can feel like for someone who fears abandonment. Intimacy becomes both oxygen and threat. They might say things like, "I just need space," when what they really mean is, "I'm afraid you'll stop wanting me first." Or they might cling too tightly, trying to preserve closeness through constant contact, texts, reassurance, promises, but none of it truly calms the storm inside because the fear isn't about the present person, it's about the past one. The body, still remembering old losses, cannot distinguish safety from danger. So even when love is steady, the mind doubts it. Even when someone stays, the heart waits for them to leave. And so the pattern continues, reaching, retreating, regretting. Wanting to be loved deeply, but afraid of needing too much. This war doesn't only affect relationships with others, it shapes the relationship with the self. People who fear abandonment often struggle to trust their own worth. They see themselves through others' reactions, a mirror that shifts with every mood, every silence. If someone grows distant, they assume it's their fault. If someone stays, they assume it's temporary. And so they keep fighting, not for love, but for proof of it. But love that needs constant proof can never feel peaceful. It turns tenderness into tension, presence into performance. Each conversation becomes a test. Do you still care? Are you still here? The heart, caught in that cycle, learns exhaustion before it learns safety. In time, this exhaustion leads to emotional detachment, a false calmness. Some stop showing their need altogether, convincing themselves that they prefer solitude. But beneath that self-sufficiency lies a deep ache, the longing to finally rest inside a connection that doesn't feel conditional. The paradox of this fear is cruel. It punishes the very thing it seeks. Every attempt to protect oneself from loss ends up isolating the heart further. Every wall built for safety keeps love at a distance. But hidden within this pattern is something sacred, awareness. Because the one who notices this war, who can say, "I'm afraid to lose you, and that's why I pull away," has already begun to heal. They have paused the reflex, they have seen the wound. The inner war is not won by force, nor by choosing one side. It softens through understanding, through realizing that both parts are trying to protect the same heart. The part that reaches wants love. The part that retreats wants safety. And both deserve compassion. When these sides stop fighting, a new truth emerges. Love does not have to hurt to feel real. Connection does not have to be earned through anxiety. The storm was never proof of love, it was proof of fear. And recognizing that is the first moment of peace. There comes a moment, often quiet, often unremarkable, when the pattern begins to reveal itself, a familiar panic after a simple silence, a sudden rush of worry after a message goes unanswered. The same ache repeating itself through different faces, different names, different years. And in that moment, something shifts. Not the fear itself, but the awareness of it. It's the beginning of realization, when you finally see that what you've been reacting to is always them, but the echo of someone before them. The mind starts to whisper, maybe this is about now. This is the moment the fear begins to speak, not as an enemy, but as a messenger. When the fear of abandonment rises, it speaks in disguises. Sometimes it sounds like anger. "Why didn't you call?" Sometimes it hides behind calmness. "It's fine, I didn't expect you to stay." Sometimes it's disguised as overthinking, rehearsing every possible explanation for someone's distance. But underneath every reaction, the voice is the same. Please don't disappear. For years, this voice goes unheard. It's drowned out by coping mechanisms, by trying harder, pleasing more, pretending not to care. But once it's noticed, it begins to make sense. The fear was never irrational, it was simply misplaced in time. It belongs to a younger version of the self, a child who once reached for warmth and felt the cold instead. Psychologists call this emotional flashback, the body reliving an old feeling in response to present trigger. You're not overreacting, you're remembering. The silence of today feels like the silence from long ago. The distance of a partner feels like the emotional absence of a parent. The pain is real, but it's not always current. Understanding this doesn't erase the fear, but it changes its meaning. Instead of running from it, you begin to listen. You start to ask softer questions. What is this feeling trying to protect? What moment from the past does this remind me of? And suddenly the chaos gains context. The spiral of anxiety starts to reveal a story not of failure or unworthiness, but of survival. The truth is, the fear of abandonment has always been trying to keep you safe. It believes that if it can predict loss, it can prevent heartbreak, that if it worries enough, it can control the outcome, but love cannot be controlled. And heartbreak, as painful as it is, cannot be pre-lived into safety. This realization is both painful and liberating, because when you stop treating the fear as the enemy, you begin to meet it with compassion. You can say to it quietly, inwardly, I understand why you're here. You protected me. Once, in that sentence, something ancient relaxes. Because for the first time, the fear is not shamed or suppressed, it is seen. Many describe this phase as an emotional awakening, the moment when you realize that not every anxious thought is truth, and not every silence means abandonment. Awareness creates distance, a small but powerful space between feeling and reaction. In that space, choice appears. You can still feel the fear, but you don't have to obey it. You can still crave closeness, but without turning it into proof of worth. You can still notice distance, but without assuming disaster. This is what healing begins to look like, not the absence of fear, but the presence of understanding. And as the fear continues to speak, its tone begins to soften. What once screamed, "Don't leave me," now whispers, "I only wanted to feel safe." And what once demanded reassurance now simply asks for patience. Because once you recognize the voice of your own fear, you no longer confuse it with love. You can hold it gently without letting it drive. And in that gentle holding, not suppression, not escape, just presence, the fear for the first time starts to rest. Healing from the fear of emotional abandonment does not arrive as a grand transformation. It does not announce itself. It comes quietly, like sunlight slipping through curtains after a long night. There is no dramatic ending to the story, only small shifts. Moments where the heart no longer races when someone takes time to reply. Moments where silence feels less like rejection and more like space. Moments where love begins to feel calm instead of conditional. This is the gentle return, the slow, compassionate journey back to emotional safety. Healing begins not with others, but with the self. Because for so long, the abandoned inner child has been waiting to be seen, soothed, and protected. For years, they have lived inside your reactions, tugging at your emotions, begging for reassurance through every relationship. But when you begin to turn inward, when you finally sit beside that younger version of yourself, you realize something profound. You have always been the one they were waiting for. In therapeutic language, this process is often called reparenting. It means learning to give yourself what you once needed from others: consistency, validation, presence. To whisper to yourself, "You are safe now," not as a mantra to erase fear, but as a truth to remind the body that it no longer has to live in survival mode. This reparenting is not an act of pretending everything is fine. It's an act of gentle truth-telling. It means acknowledging the ache, honoring the fear, and then slowly teaching the nervous system what safety feels like again. At first, it feels unnatural. The body does not trust calm. The mind still searches for signs of danger. But with time and compassion, the body learns new rhythms. It begins to realize that love can stay even when it's quiet. That affection doesn't always disappear when attention shifts. That presence can be imperfect and still be real. Emotional healing isn't about removing sensitivity, it's about transforming it. What once felt like overreaction becomes empathy. What once felt like weakness becomes awareness. The same sensitivity that once scanned for danger now begins to sense connection, genuine, stable, and mutual. You start to see others differently, too. The partners who pull away aren't villains, they are mirrors, reflecting how afraid you've been of losing control. The friends who stay even through your uncertainty become proof that love can survive imperfection. You stop trying to earn affection and begin to receive it. Healing at its core is the slow unlearning of urgency. It's realizing that you do not need to chase what is already choosing you. That love, when it's real, does not demand constant reassurance to exist. And it's not linear. There are still days when the fear returns, a quiet panic before a goodbye. Pang of doubt after distance, but instead of drowning in it, you notice it, you breathe through it. You speak to it softly. I know you're the part of me that was once left behind, but I'm here now. In that moment, the fear loosens its grip, because the child who once had no one to turn to finally has you. The gentle return is not about becoming fearless, it's about becoming kind to your fear. You stop fighting it and start listening. You stop blaming yourself for needing love and start honoring that need as human. And slowly, the patterns that once defined your relationships begin to soften. You stop clinging, you stop running. You start staying not because you trust others completely, but because you've begun to trust yourself. That is what safety feels like. Not perfection, not certainty. Just a quiet confidence that even if love falters, even if others leave, you will not abandon yourself again. The gentle return is not the end of fear. It is the beginning of peace. There comes a point when the waves begin to settle, not because the ocean has changed, but because you have learned how to float. The fear of emotional abandonment never vanishes completely. It lingers softer now, less commanding. It's no longer the storm that defines your days, but a faint echo that sometimes hums in the background, and when it does, you don't panic. You recognize it. You nod to it like an old friend who once tried to protect you in the only way it knew how. This is what peace looks like after fear, not emptiness, but stillness. You begin to see that love was never about guarantees or permanence. It was about presence. The kind that exists in this moment, right here, right now. The heart learns that to love is to risk, and to risk is to live, but no longer does risk mean collapse. It means trust in yourself to endure, to heal, to stay open even when uncertainty returns. In this stillness, you start to appreciate the quiet spaces that once terrified you. Silence is no longer proof of loss. Distance is no longer a threat. You understand that love has different rhythms, sometimes close, sometimes far, sometimes invisible but still there. You also begin to notice how different your body feels. The shoulders that once carried tension now rest. The mind that once raced with stories now pauses before assuming. The heart, once frantic, desperate for signs of reassurance, now beats with a steadier rhythm. This peace is not numbness, it's presence. It's the ability to feel deeply without drowning and failing. To stay connected without needing to control. To love without losing yourself in the process. You start to forgive the versions of yourself that came before, the one who begged to be chosen, the one who overanalyzed every text, the one who pretended not to care. You see now that all of them were just trying to survive love in the only way they knew how. They were not weak, they were trying to be safe. And you begin to forgive others too, the ones who couldn't stay, who didn't know how to hold you, who were fighting their own invisible fears, not because what they did was okay, but because holding on to the pain keeps you bound to the past. Forgiveness in this sense is freedom. Stillness after the storm is not about forgetting, it's about remembering differently. The same memories that once made you flinch now make you understand. The same fear that once controlled you now humbles you. You realize that everyone in their own quiet way is afraid of being left behind. And in that realization, compassion expands. You begin to love with gentleness, not demand. You begin to stay without fear. You begin to see connection not as a possession, but as a meeting of two journeys, each walking home to themselves. The world feels softer now. Conversations no longer sound like tests. Solitude no longer feels like punishment. Even goodbyes, though they still ache, no longer shatter, because you know what remains: yourself, intact, present, whole. In the stillness, you understand what the fear was trying to say all along. Don't leave me. And you finally answer, I won't. That promise, the one made to the self, becomes the foundation of peace. And so the story ends not with the disappearance of fear, but with the transformation of it. The storm still exists, but you are no longer lost within it. You have learned to stand at its center, unafraid of the wind, trusting that when the rain passes, the world will still be there, waiting, open, alive. This is the quiet truth of healing. Love does not erase fear. It teaches you to hold it until it no longer holds you.